I just realized something recently. Summer Artoria, the ruler one, actually has a moment that weirdly mirrors her role back in Camelot. I'm not talking about how she fights or anything like that. It's more about her presence in the story. In the Las Vegas summer event, Artoria is placed right in the middle of the conflict. She's basically running the show. She holds the highest authority in that entire event. But when you dig a bit deeper, you find out the problem. It wasn't actually because of her. She literally just walked into the place. The singularity was already there. She didn't create it, and she had no clue what caused it. Well, spoiler alert, the cause was our favorite hobo samurai casually cooking and eating something with a holy grail. Now, the cause aside, think about it. Doesn't that sound familiar? That's exactly the same situation she was in during the Camelot chapter. Sure, Camelot's all about the Knights of the Round Table. But remember how it actually started. It wasn't about Artoria. The opening conflict, or the real conflict of that story, was in Jerusalem, between someone claiming to be Richard the Lionheart, the Ninth Crusaders, and Ozymandias. Artoria, or Lion King, only entered the story after the singularity had already formed and a bunch of stuff had happened behind the scenes. We, the Chaldea crew, only came in to deal with the final part of the mess. See the pattern now, pretty similar, right? And speaking of similar parallels, there's something interesting I need to point out. The Lion King in Camelot and the Artoria we summoned are technically two different people, but during the summer event, in that particular conflict, she still ends up being called the Lion King. So, once again, the Lion King shows up, but isn't actually the reason the singularity exists. She just walked into it and created a giant, luxurious building with her own power, without even knowing why the whole thing was happening in the first place. It's honestly hilarious. And that's what we're talking about today. There are a bunch of cool moments where things from previous events, earlier arcs, or even the characters' real-life legends just repeat. Like, have you ever noticed that pattern? When a story brings back the exact same moment, but with different characters, or maybe a different setting, and you suddenly realize this already happened before. Well, for a familiar example, an easy one, remember the finale of Attack on Titan Season 2. Hannes gets eaten by the same Titan that killed Eren's mom, in the exact same way, while Eren and Mikasa are once again forced to watch helplessly. Eren literally laughs in despair, because the irony is just cruel at that point. That's crazy, isn't it? Same Titan, same witnesses. But this time it's Hannes. The craziest part is that he is still someone from Eren's family. So yeah, grab your snacks, get comfy, because today we're talking about those moments in Fate Grand Order when we can say that one familiar line. These are the moments when history repeats itself. Let's talk about Barghest the Fairy Knight. This girl has a moment where she literally repeats the same thing as the person whose name she carries as Camelot's guardian, Gawain. Now, if you're not familiar with Arthurian stories, this might be a bit hard to catch. But there's one key trait of Barghest that the writers decided to tweak: her abandonment. You see, in the original legend, Gawain holds a serious grudge against Lancelot, mostly because of things he just couldn't accept or move on from. Some of those reasons were Lancelot's affair with Guinevere, and the fact that some of Gawain's siblings were killed. I mean, Gawain is part of Arthur's family, so the whole affair hit him harder than most. And when Gareth and Gaheris ended up getting killed while trying to stop Lancelot's rebellion, it all ended in tragedy. For Gareth's final moment, you can actually check it out in his in-game profile. Fast forward to the Battle of Camlan, basically the bloodiest part of the whole Arthurian story. And Gawain finally snaps. He throws all his anger at Lancelot and goes all out fighting him. He abandons his post and duty and picks a fight with Lancelot because his emotions have just reached their limit. Because of that, King Arthur ends up having to face Mordred alone. And sure, Arthur wins, but he gets badly wounded and later dies from those injuries. So yeah, Gawain's personal anger and how he put all his trust in Arthur while going off to settle his own grudge ends up leading to Camelot's downfall. Or at least it became one of the key factors. he deeply regrets this, and you can clearly see it in the Camelot chapter where he's so obsessed with following his king's orders, because he doesn't want to make the same mistake again. Now let's look at Barghest in Lost Belt Britain. We see something really similar happen. Barghest, who carries the name Gawain, also gets swept up in emotion. Or in this case, it's not just emotion, it's also her instincts and her curse. Barghest basically betrays her queen, Morgan, because she believes Morgan's rule is becoming too cruel and tyrannical. So she plans to leave Britain, to abandon her queen. She's convinced that by going far away from Camelot and saving her own people, the Fae, it would be the right thing to do. See, even though it's not exactly 100% the same as Gawain's original story, the parallel is there. She goes far away and ends up abandoning her ruler. But then what happens is, she ends up helping the downfall of Camelot, which eventually leads to Morgan's death. And after Morgan dies, Barghest realizes something painful and feels deep regret. Morgan was right all along. She was harsh and cruel to the fairies for a reason. So in the end, both people named Gawain helped bring down their kingdoms because of personal desires, and both were left with overwhelming regret. Also, I just realized that when Boggart fires the black barrel at Barghest in the Fae Britain chapter, she's seemingly unscathed, and everyone wonders how she's not hurt. Barghest then comments that his shot was nothing like Morgan's Rhongomyniads. So this kind of implies that she has been struck by them before, possibly as punishment for a failure. And that's exactly like what happened to Gawain in the Camelot chapter when he failed his mission. Now that I think about it, Boban Sith actually has a few solid history repeats itself moments. Kinda like what we saw with Barghest. And just like Barghest, it all ties back to the name she was given. Tristan. If you're familiar with this emotionally damaged knight, then you probably already know the two big things tied to the OG Tristan. One, he had a fiancée named Isolde, and two, he died from poison. These 2 points have been reused multiple times in different retellings. And guess what? Boban Sith, who carries the name Tristan, ends up going through pretty much the same stuff. Sith had a connection with Beryl. I don't remember if she liked him romantically or not, but she was really into his story. Meanwhile, Beryl was being a manipulative scumbag as he is. This dynamic straight up mirrors the original Tristan legend. See, Isolde was supposed to marry King Mark, who was Tristan's uncle, basically a father figure to him. So Tristan falling in love with her was a huge mess. In Fae Britain, Sith ends up close to Beryl, who literally claims to be Morgan's husband, and Morgan is like a mother or authority figure to her. That alone is already a wild parallel, but it keeps going. In the original story, this forbidden love is what ends up ruining Tristan, or at least in the version that I know. King Mark finds out about the affair, bans Tristan from his kingdom, and Tristan eventually falls for someone else named Isolde. In some versions, Isolde and Isolde are the same person, but in others, they're different. Then comes the tragic part. He gets wounded by a poisoned spear in battle and dies after a misunderstanding. You know, the white and black sail story. Isolde gets jealous and tells Tristan the color of the sail incorrectly, and because of that, Isolde never sees Tristan alive again. Tristan, thinking Isolde isn't coming for him, dies believing she abandoned him. Now look at Sith. It's the same pattern. She's so obsessed with Beryl and his magecraft, but it only leads her down a dark path full of misunderstandings. And not only that, because of Beryl's magecraft, Sith ends up with a rotten soul that slowly eats away at her like poison. That's crazy, isn't it? It's scary how well thought out some of this stuff is. Okay, so I've been talking about the Camelot squad non-stop until now. So, let's switch it up and look at another legend for a bit. Let's talk about Canis. In the game, she's a servant under Kirshtaria Wodaim. And honestly, I think their relationship is pretty solid. I mean, Kirshtaria is strong, determined, and super charismatic. When he wants something, he goes all in with ambition and confidence, so it makes sense that Canis would be down to work with someone like that. But have you ever thought, why would Canis even want to team up with someone like him in the first place? Well, think back to her legend. She was part of the Argonauts. And who else led the Argonauts but Captain Jason? Another charismatic, ambitious, visionary kind of guy, and yeah, also blonde, just like Kirshtaria. So maybe, just maybe, that's part of the reason why she was willing to follow him. Next up, we've got Konstantinos. And man, this guy is on a whole different level. While most characters we've talked about have parallels or alternate versions of themselves with some twists, Konstantinos doesn't even bother with all that. He straight up dies the exact same way he did in real life, and he kinda knows it too. In the Trom chapter, Konstantinos dies just like in actual history, holding the line at his last fortress, completely outnumbered. That's literally his whole deal. He's the kind of hero who defends to the very end. Like, if you hear the name Konstantinos, you instantly think of a last stand. Even his noble phantasm is all about defense. And yeah, in real-world history, he was the last emperor of the Byzantine Empire. And when Constantinople was falling to the Ottomans, he famously took off his imperial robes and fought as a regular soldier in one final, desperate charge. In that chapter, it's a very similar situation. His side, the reinstatement realm, is getting crushed by a much stronger enemy, the revenge realm. Instead of running, he chooses to stay behind and fight to the bitter end while others, like Bradamante and Johanna, escape. He even realizes this and thinks that maybe he is cursed or something. I mean, it's like fate is forcing him to repeat the same tragic death again, even in this different world. Now, I'm sorry everyone, that's it for today. I really wanted to include a lot more in this one, because these moments are basically history in anime style, but I just don't have the time. I'll do a part 2 if you guys want, maybe next time. For now, don't forget to click subscribe, share the video, and I'll see you all next time.